You're not losing money because your setup is wrong. You're losing because your strategy was built for someone else's nervous system. Most traders spend years tweaking indicators, studying candlesticks, watching gurus on double speed, yet they still panic on every pullback, freeze on every breakout, and sabotage every win before it compounds. But Kristjan Kullamägi did something different. He didn't just learn trading, he rewired himself into someone the market couldn't break. Imagine this: a self-taught trader in Sweden, no Wall Street background, no formal training, barely speaking English, sitting in a dim room, replaying thousands of charts every night. Not to memorize patterns, but to build a second nature that didn't flinch when the market screamed. No Discord servers, no paid course, just brutal screen time and radical simplicity. And then he did the unthinkable, turned $5,000 into millions, live in real time in front of thousands of people, without ever overcomplicating a single trade. Welcome to Trading Psychology Stick, where we decode the mindset behind market success. Quick disclaimer, this is educational content based on public information about trading strategies. Nothing here is financial advice. Your results depend on your own research, risk management, and psychological discipline. Now, let's dive into how one trader built a system so simple, so scalable, and so emotionally bulletproof that it changed everything. He doesn't predict the market, he moves with it, waiting for setups to demand attention instead of chasing trends. While most traders scream it's manipulation, Kristjan quietly scales into breakouts, methodically, mathematically, and with zero emotional leakage. No indicators, no earnings reports, no opinions, just clean charts, high relative strength, tight risk, and sniper-level scaling. And perhaps most disturbing of all, he's shared everything, every trade, every rule, every pattern, live on Twitch for free. But the secret isn't in what he trades, it's how he thinks. His setups aren't rare. His mindset is, he understands that trading is a psychological sport, played with financial tools. That success doesn't come from knowing what a chart looks like, but from knowing who you become when you're in the trade. This video isn't a tutorial, it's a transformation. If you've ever blown up your account, if you've ever felt that your emotions are the real counterparty, if you know deep down that the problem isn't the market but your reactions to it, this is your blueprint. Section 1. The $5,000 Obsession. A trader born in silence. He didn't start on Wall Street. He started in silence. No suit, no backing. Just a computer in a dark room in Sweden and a mind obsessed with patterns. Kristjan wasn't looking to get rich quick. He was trying to understand something most traders never do. How the market feels when a monster stock is about to explode. His journey didn't begin with a strategy. It began with a question. What do all the biggest winners have in common? And instead of reading books, he opened charts, thousands of them. Not just glancing, replaying, every day, every candle, every tick. The big idea here isn't hustle, it's repetition. Kristjan became great by mastering one thing and drilling it so deep into his nervous system that trading became a reflex. This wasn't random chart scanning. This was monk-level discipline. Every breakout stock from the last 20 years, every consolidation that led to an explosion, every volume surge before liftoff, he memorized them like a language no one else cared to learn. And slowly, the market began to speak back. Picture it. A 22-year-old kid hunched over his screen at midnight, manually scrolling through Tesla in 2013, Netflix in 2010, Chipotle in 2008, watching how they move before they change the game. No alerts, no scanners, just raw data burning patterns into his brain. He wasn't looking for tips. He was rewiring his intuition. The market isn't random. It rewards the prepared. And Kristjan prepared in silence while everyone else was talking. And then came the breakthrough. A tiny $5,000 account, applied with the precision of a sniper and the patience of a surgeon. No overtrading, no revenge, just methodical entries on breakouts, small position sizes, and strict risk. And slowly, painfully, it grew. Not in a straight line, but in consistent stair steps, one clean trade at a time, each win reinforcing the pattern, each loss a data point, not a drama. What most people miss is this. Kristjan didn't need 100 strategies. He needed one that fit him, one that respected his emotional limits, one that could scale. He didn't find a strategy. He found a system that matched his psychology. That's why it stuck. That's why it worked. Not because it was magic, but because it was built for him. So ask yourself, have you ever built a system for you? Or are you borrowing someone else's edge, hoping it works with your fears, your impulses, your wiring? Kristjan's obsession wasn't with the market. It was with alignment between setup, size, mindset, and risk. And that's the foundation of everything he became. But that obsession led to one conclusion that flipped everything. Not all stocks are worth trading, only the ones that move like him. Kristjan never tried to trade everything. He only traded what already screamed. He doesn't believe in predicting tops or bottoms. He believes in one thing, momentum. But not the way textbooks describe it. For him, momentum isn't just a price surge. It's a form of rhythm, an emotional pattern, a storm of attention and aggression compressed into a chart. And only the traders who can emotionally synchronize with it will survive. This is where most people get him wrong. They see him buying high and assume he's reckless. But what they don't see is the preparation behind every entry. The months of watching a stock rise, coil, tighten, the rising relative strength, the clean daily chart, the absence of overhead supply. He waits like a sniper, not for confirmation, but for command. When a stock tells him, "I'm ready," he listens. He doesn't question, he executes. Imagine this, a biotech stock has tripled in 6 weeks. Most traders say, it's too extended. Kristjan leans in. He doesn't fear speed. He thrives in it because he has trained his mind to process movement without panic. This is what momentum really means for him, entering where most people are afraid and exiting before they wake up. Because the market doesn't reward courage, it rewards control. And control comes from trust, not in the trade, but in the process that got you to the trigger. Kristjan tracks relative strength over 3, 6, and 12 months. He filters by average daily range, liquidity, and sector theme. He doesn't just look for stocks that are up. He looks for stocks that have been leading for weeks, stocks that have attention, commitment, aggression behind them. Because momentum isn't just technical, it's psychological. It's where fear of missing out meets capital, and charts explode under pressure. Trading momentum isn't about being fast. It's about being emotionally neutral in fast environments. Most traders bring fear into these setups. Kristjan brings pattern memory, risk control, and mechanical clarity. That's why he trades momentum, not because it's sexy, because it removes the need to guess. The stock is already telling the story. All he has to do is read it. What the market wants is not a genius. It wants someone who can scale conviction without scaling emotion, and that's why Kristjan fits. He doesn't need to analyze the news or guess the catalyst. If it's moving, if it's strong, if it's clean, he's in. His system isn't about prediction, it's about participation. He enters when momentum is confirmed and exits when the structure cracks. No opinions, no forecasts. Just synchronized movement between trader and chart. Do you actually want to trade momentum, or do you just like the idea of it? Because to do this right, you have to become the kind of person who stays calm when prices accelerate, who doesn't flinch on 5% candles, who doesn't freeze when slippage hits. You can't copy Kristjan's trades without copying his nervous system, and most won't. But once you align with this truth, once you build a system that feels like you, momentum stops being scary. It becomes natural, it becomes profitable, and it opens the door to setups that almost no one sees coming. Section 3, the setup that breaks all rules, episodic pivots. Most traders are told not to chase. Don't buy the gap, don't touch it after earnings. Don't enter when it looks too obvious. Kristjan breaks all of that, and that's exactly why he wins. His favorite setup? The episodic pivot. It's loud, it's aggressive, it's violent, and it works because it's built on human nature at scale. Here's how it unfolds. A stock gaps up 10%, sometimes 20%, on massive volume, usually triggered by earnings, product news, or sector momentum. Retail traders see it and think, too late. But Kristjan, he leans in, not recklessly, not blindly. He watches the first 30 minutes like a hawk. He's waiting to see if the stock can hold its opening range. If it does, he enters with precision, often on the first pullback or the reclaim of volume-weighted average price or a 10-day moving average. That's the moment when weak hands are out and strong money starts to load. That's when he strikes. The deeper reason why this works isn't technical. It's emotional. Episodic pivots are psychological ruptures in the market. They create a new story. They shake people out of their patterns. Suddenly, everyone is paying attention. Shorts are trapped. momentum funds are scrambling to buy, and the chart becomes magnetic. That's when Kristjan steps in, not as a gambler, but as a sniper, positioning himself right at the emotional inflection point between disbelief and euphoria. Think back to AI stock in early 2023. It gapped up 15% on artificial intelligence sector momentum and earnings. Most traders hesitated. Kristjan didn't. He waited for the first red to green move, confirmed volume, and entered. He wasn't hoping. He was responding. There's a difference between chasing and recognizing power, and episodic pivots are power, distilled. The key to making this work isn't about timing earnings plays. It's about understanding the anatomy of conviction. When a stock gaps with 5 times, 10 times its average volume, it means the market has decided, not guessed, decided. And Kristjan's edge is trusting that decision faster than anyone else, without emotional baggage. But here's the real twist. He doesn't go all in. His initial position might be just 5 to 10% of his full size. He wants skin in the game, but flexibility in execution. If the stock pulls back to support and holds, he adds. If it reclaims the high, he adds more. If it fails, he cuts fast, usually with no more than 1% risk. It's not gambling, it's structured aggression. Have you ever watched a breakout and told yourself, it's too late, only to see it double in the next 2 weeks? That's the moment this setup was designed for. The pain of missing it is a symptom of trading based on fear, not power. Episodic pivots don't wait for your comfort. They reward your preparation. And this is just one setup. Because once you understand how emotion flows through price, you'll see something else. Sometimes the real move doesn't start on day 1, but on the breakout that comes next. Section 4. Breakouts that print, the hidden beauty of flags and triangles. If episodic pivots are the loud explosion, then flag and triangle breakouts are the quiet buildup before the storm. They don't scream for attention. They whisper, pulling in the patient, the observant, the disciplined, and Kristjan loves them. Not because they're flashy, but because they're reliable, scalable, and often cleaner than the big gaps everyone's chasing. A breakout isn't just a price level. It's a psychological boundary where doubt lives until it gets shattered. After a strong run, a high-quality momentum stock doesn't collapse. It rests. It builds a higher low. It tightens against a rising 10 or 20-day moving average. Volume contracts. The noise dies down. Traders forget it. But Kristjan watches, because he knows that when price consolidates in silence, it's storing energy. And when that energy snaps, it's not a breakout, it's a release. Picture this. First Solar rips 40% in 3 weeks. Then it stops. 3 tight candles. Volume dries up. It kisses the 10-day. Everyone looks away. Kristjan leans in. He's not interested in price alone. He's interested in character. He's looking for signs that institutions are holding, that no one's dumping, that the trend is alive. And when it breaks that coil with a volume surge, that's the moment he scales in. Why do flags and triangles work? Because they trap time. They lull traders into complacency just long enough for the next wave of demand to erupt. It's not a pattern, it's a pattern of behavior, and Kristjan knows it intimately. He's seen it across hundreds of monster stocks: Tesla, Netflix, Shopify, Nvidia. The big runs almost always come after the calm. Most traders wait for confirmation. Kristjan anticipates structure. If a stock has shown power and starts building a flag, he's already calculating risk. He might enter early, on the 3rd touch of the trend line, or the bounce off the 10-day. Not because he's reckless, because he understands context. If the chart is clean, the theme is hot, and the volume structure is right, he doesn't need perfection. He just needs permission. And when he's in, he doesn't hold forever. He knows that flag breakouts often give one clean push, then stall. That's why he scales out aggressively. He respects the move, but doesn't romanticize it, because in momentum, greed is slow death. Kristjan doesn't buy breakouts. He buys structures that create them. The flag isn't the signal, it's the setup. The breakout is just the punctuation. And once you can read that language, you'll realize the market tells you everything if you're quiet enough to listen. Section 5, the parabolic short, betting against hype, not hope. Most traders dream of catching a moonshot. Kristjan, he dreams of fading one. Because while everyone else is chasing green candles, he's stalking exhaustion. Not because he's contrarian, because he understands what most traders don't. Momentum burns bright, but it burns out fast. And when it does, there's money to be made on the way down. Parabolic shorts are Kristjan's weapon against hype. He waits until a stock has surged 200%, sometimes 500%, often in just a few days. It's everywhere. YouTube thumbnails, Discord alerts, FinTwit, fear of missing out. But underneath the surface, a setup is forming. He doesn't guess tops. He watches behavior, slowing volume, gaps that get sold, lower highs intraday. And on day 3 or 4 of the surge, when retail is buying the top, he's already sharpening his blade. Take Indonesian Energy Corporation in 2022, an oil stock that spiked over 500% in days. Everyone was screaming next GameStop. Kristjan didn't flinch. He watched the third green candle push higher on weaker volume, saw the failed breakout intraday, and struck. He didn't short blindly. He scaled in as the price spiked, not because he was arrogant, because he understood the psychology. The higher it goes, the more fragile it becomes. This strategy isn't for everyone. It's precise, it's fast, and it requires ice-cold emotion. Most traders short too early and get squeezed. Kristjan waits for signs of supply, panic, or structural weakness, then enters with risk defined. He never bets the farm. His size increases with confirmation, not anticipation. If it reclaims highs, he cuts. No ego, just execution. What makes this work isn't the entry. It's understanding why the move happened. Parabolas form when hope becomes hysteria, when the chart becomes a lottery ticket, when fundamentals don't matter and all that remains is belief. And belief, when shaken, unravels fast. The first red day isn't just a candle, it's a narrative collapse. And Kristjan positions himself right on that emotional fault line where euphoria dies and panic takes its place. That's why his short trades don't last long. Sometimes a day, sometimes hours. Because he's not trying to destroy a company. He's just trading the moment when emotion flips. Parabolic shorts aren't about cynicism. They're about realism. They require a clear head, a clean chart, and an unshakable understanding that every mania has a breaking point. And when it comes, the traders who watched without flinching will be ready to strike. But these plays don't show up every day. In fact, most of the time Kristjan's not shorting at all, because the real power comes from knowing when not to trade, and that's where his next weapon shines. Section 6, the art of sculpting a trade, scaling in and out like a sniper. Most traders think position management is something you figure out after you enter. Kristjan knows the opposite is true. How you build and exit a position is the trade. It's not an afterthought, it's the architecture. Because if your trading system is real, it shouldn't just tell you when to get in. It should tell you exactly how to build size, how to protect profits, and how to exit without emotion. That's where most traders lose their edge. They go full size too early, panic on pullbacks, get shaken out before the real move, then watch gains evaporate because they never had an exit plan. Kristjan doesn't go all in, he builds in. His scaling system isn't emotional, it's mathematical. First entry, usually 25 to 50% of full position. Why? Because he's not trying to be right on the first shot. He's trying to get information. That first piece of size is a probe. It puts him in the trade, makes him care, makes him watch. If the setup confirms, pullback holds, volume expands, breakout triggers. He adds again, and if it proves strength, he layers once more. This is structural scaling, adding into winners in a way that keeps risk controlled, but allows conviction to expand. He builds his position like a tower, foundation first, reacting to structure, never to hope. At no point is he hoping it works. He's responding to what the market shows him. Imagine this. A hot stock breaks out from a flag. Kristjan enters with 30% of intended size. It pulls back to the 10-day moving average, holding. He adds 30% more. Then it reclaims the high on clean volume. Now he's at full size, but only after the market proved the move was real. This is how he wins big without dying small. Because if he's wrong, that first piece is cut with minimal damage. But if he's right, he's riding size that earned its place. Most traders do the opposite. They size up on the first entry and scale out as they get scared. Kristjan flips that. He starts small and scales as his system says, yes, the risk has now shifted in your favor. But scaling in is only half the equation. Here's what makes Kristjan different on the exit side. He doesn't ride the full move with full size. He sells into strength. He takes profits before the market forces his hand. And he does it in layers, just like he scaled in. This isn't fear, it's engineering. Because when you scale out, you don't just bank gains. You reduce stress, lower risk, and give your mind space to operate with clarity. Kristjan might sell 25% of his position when the stock doubles his risk, say at a 2R move. Another 20% near a 3R extension or the next resistance zone. If the stock keeps trending, he lets the rest ride. But if the chart starts cracking or the broader sector weakens, he exits. Not because he's afraid, because the structure changed, because his plan told him it's time. That's the essence of his edge. He's not trying to maximize every tick. He's trying to stay in the game, compound his wins, and let the market pay him without begging. When you scale properly, both in and out, you stop needing the trade to work. You've already taken partial profit. You've already freed yourself from outcome addiction. And here's the deeper psychology. Every entry and exit is a mirror. It reflects your beliefs about money, control, and self-worth. Do you add out of hope, sell out of fear, hold out of greed? Kristjan removes that internal noise by following external structure. And by doing so, he protects the one thing most traders never develop: emotional neutrality. When you scale into a winner with logic and scale out with discipline, something strange happens. You feel calm. Because instead of praying for the trade to work, you're participating with the market as it unfolds. You're not chasing the move, you're sculpting it. Scaling is Kristjan's form of psychological insurance. It guarantees that no single trade defines him, no single outcome breaks him, and no moment of excitement overrides years of practice. Because when you manage positions like a professional, you're not just trading. You're building a system that compounds not just profits, but peace of mind. Section 7. The bedrock of survival. How risk and position sizing protect your mind. There's one number that governs Kristjan's entire system. One rule he never violates. One discipline that separates him from the masses blowing up accounts every week. It's not a magic indicator. It's not a secret pattern. It's this: never risk more than 1% per trade. Not 2%, not 5%, not just this once because it looks really good. 1%. That's it. And it's why he's still here. To Kristjan, risk isn't just about protecting capital. It's about protecting clarity. Because the moment your position size puts your nervous system into fight or flight mode, you're no longer trading the market. You're trading fear. And fear makes you late. It makes you freeze. It makes you cut winners and hold losers. That's not trading. That's survival. And survival mode is a terrible place to make financial decisions. Trading is a game of thousands of iterations. No single trade matters. No single setup is worth emotional destruction. If you're risking 1% and lose, you're fine. You can come back. You still have energy. You still have clarity. But if you risk 10% and lose, you're not just down money. You're down mental capital. You start questioning everything. You hesitate. You spiral. Kristjan's formula is simple. Account size times 1% divided by stop distance equals position size. If a stock has a wider stop, he takes a smaller position. If the stop is tight, he can size slightly bigger, but the total risk never exceeds that sacred 1%. And because he scales in, the initial probe is usually well below that threshold. It gives him flexibility, breathing room, control. But here's what makes his system elite. He sizes based not just on risk tolerance, but on liquidity and volatility. If a stock trades 2 million shares a day, he might take a larger piece. If it only trades 200,000, he sizes down or skips it. He doesn't want to be the liquidity. He wants to ride with it. High average daily range, smaller size, tighter range. He can go a bit bigger. But at no point is he gambling. His position size is always tied to how much he's willing to lose at the stop. That's the key. Size is never based on how much he hopes to gain. It's based on how much he's willing to give up. It means every trade has a predefined emotional boundary. It means no single candle can knock him off center. Think of it like a boxer. He doesn't throw haymakers in round one. He jabs, tests, moves. Kristjan's risk system allows him to stay in the ring longer, to take 10, 20, 50 trades without fear of ruin. That's how edge compounds, not through wins alone, but through survival. What's your real risk tolerance? Not what you want it to be. What your nervous system can handle. If your hands shake when you click buy, you're too big. If you stare at the chart all day hoping it turns green, you're too big. Kristjan doesn't deal with that. His size is small enough to stay objective, large enough to matter. That's the balance most never find. And it's not just about losing less. It's about freeing yourself to trade correctly. When you're not emotionally attached to the outcome, you can follow your plan. You can exit with logic. re-enter without hesitation. You can think clearly, and in trading, clear thinking is the rarest alpha of all. This is why Kristjan's system works at scale. The same principles that protected a $5,000 account still protect him managing millions. Because risk isn't a lever you pull based on confidence. It's a rule you follow because you respect the game. 1% might sound small, but it's what kept him alive long enough to learn everything else. And once you survive long enough, something wild starts to happen. You stop obsessing over being right and start building systems that make you unstoppable. When you size by design, your account grows by principle, not by accident. And suddenly, trading stops being a slot machine. It becomes architecture. Every time you enter a trade, you already know what your max loss is, what your max size is, what your exit triggers are. That calm is Kristjan's real edge. Because the market isn't a spreadsheet, it's a storm, and only the ones who can move with it without resistance will survive. Section 8. The market is a living storm. Don't bring a calculator. Most traders approach the market like it's a puzzle to be solved, a formula to be cracked, a math problem waiting for the right variable. Kristjan learned that this view is a trap because the market isn't a puzzle, it's a living storm, chaotic, emotional, non-linear. And you don't solve a storm, you navigate it. The ones who try to predict it with precision, they drown. The ones who learn to move with its rhythm, they ride waves the others can't even see. This is why Kristjan doesn't obsess over predicting the exact moment a stock will break out. He doesn't calculate perfect Fibonacci levels. Instead, he studies behavior, volume patterns, price structure, sector rotations. He watches how stocks breathe, how they coil and expand, how they trap and release. He doesn't need certainty. He needs flow. Imagine the market like ocean currents. Some days, it's flat. Some days, it roars. The amateur stands there with a ruler, measuring waves, trying to make sense of every fluctuation. Kristjan, he builds a surfboard, a system that floats, adjusts, and rides momentum without resistance. He isn't fighting volatility, he's dancing with it. That's why you'll often hear him say things like, let the stock prove itself, or structure first, set up second. Because he doesn't force entries, he waits until the environment becomes inviting. His greatest trades rarely come from trying to outthink the market. They come from aligning with the current that's already pulling. And the irony? That's what makes it feel effortless. When the storm is moving and your system is built to float, not fight, you don't need perfect timing. You just need presence. You don't need to anticipate every move. You just need to read what the market is telling you right now. Kristjan's system removes pressure because he's not trying to win every trade. He's trying to stay in rhythm with the ones that matter. The clean setups, the strong themes, the high ADR monsters that already have energy behind them. He doesn't manufacture opportunity, he recognizes it. And that recognition only happens when you stop needing the market to obey you, when you stop treating it like a machine and start treating it like a force of nature. That shift in perspective is everything. Because once you respect the storm, you stop building fragile trades. You start building sails, not anchors. And that shift unlocks a deeper layer of edge. One where you not only flow with the market, but start anticipating its moods. Which leads to the next breakthrough in Kristjan's system, knowing how to spot where the energy is moving before the chart even forms the setup. Section 9, finding hot themes before they explode. While most traders stare at individual charts, Kristjan is scanning something else entirely, the flow of capital. He doesn't just ask what stock is moving. He asks, where is money starting to move? Because setups don't exist in a vacuum. They're born inside themes, waves of attention, narratives, and liquidity. And the earlier you identify that wave, the easier it becomes to ride it. This is Kristjan's invisible edge. He doesn't wait for CNBC to say AI is hot. He sees it weeks before, when obscure names begin to perk up, when volume clusters in small corners of a sector, when 3 or 4 stocks in the same theme quietly hit 52-week highs. It's not magic, it's pattern recognition, and it's how he consistently positions before the breakout. Every day he scans sector ETFs, SMH for semis, TAN for solar, XLE for energy, XLV for healthcare. He watches for strength over 3, 6, and 12-month windows. Is a sector outperforming the S&P? Is it making higher highs while the market chops? That's a signal. But he doesn't stop there. He drills into the leaders. Are the top names trending clean? Do they show expanding volume? That's how Kristjan identifies rotation before confirmation. Think back to early 2023. AI wasn't mainstream yet, but Kristjan noticed AI stock, Big Bear, AI, Good Food AI starting to move before the headlines hit. He didn't need a news story. He needed relative strength and volume. The moment he saw that, he built his watch list, waited for structure, and attacked when setups formed. Most traders react to news. Kristjan reacts to price truth. Themes aren't hype, they're liquidity maps. When capital flows into a sector, setups become cleaner, breakouts run longer, and risk-reward expands. Kristjan only hunts inside these environments. That's why he can go weeks doing nothing, because if the theme isn't there, the trade is noise. But when the theme is hot, he knows he can press, he can size up, because multiple setups will emerge, multiple names will break out, and if he misses one, another is coming. This is how professionals think, not what's the next stock, but what's the next wave. Kristjan doesn't wait for confirmation from gurus. He watches what the market itself is whispering. And when a sector whispers long enough, when leaders emerge, patterns tighten, and volume blooms, he listens. Then he acts. Once you find the theme, everything else becomes easier. Entries are cleaner, exits more generous. Even pullbacks feel less threatening because you're not riding a stock, you're riding a story. But stories only work when the narrative stays intact. And that's where Kristjan draws his next line in the sand, by obsessing over one element most traders ignore: chart cleanliness. Section 10, the clean chart doctrine: kill the noise, trade the signal. There's something almost minimalist about the way Kristjan trades. No indicators cluttering the screen, no complicated overlays, just price, volume, trend, and one brutal standard that governs every entry. If the chart isn't clean, he doesn't touch it, because messy charts equal messy outcomes, and messy outcomes destroy clarity. What is a clean chart? It's not just one that looks pretty. It's a chart where price action tells a clear story: higher highs, higher lows, orderly pullbacks, controlled volume. It's a chart with structure, no erratic gaps, no overlapping chop, no hidden resistance from 2 years ago, just a smooth canvas for momentum to breathe. Kristjan knows that trading is not just technical, it's psychological. When you trade a messy chart, you inherit its emotional noise. Every wick becomes a question, every candle a doubt. You start micromanaging the trade, second-guessing the breakout, reacting to shadows instead of signals. That's why he filters so ruthlessly. If the chart doesn't pass the easy-to-hold test, he skips it. Imagine two charts side by side. One is choppy, with overlapping candles, fake breakouts, tail wicks, and erratic volume. The other is clean, tight range, smooth moving averages, rising on low-volume pullbacks and accelerating on breakouts. Which one lets you scale with confidence? Which one lets you hold through noise? Kristjan waits for the clean one. This is why his winners often run big. Clean charts attract clean moves. They reflect institutional interest, not retail chaos. When a stock trends without drama, it means someone with size is accumulating quietly. And Kristjan wants to be riding with them, not fighting the herd on meme stocks moving on emotion. Clean charts don't just make entries easier, they make exits smarter. Because when structure is respected, breakouts behave better, pullbacks respect levels. Your stop loss becomes meaningful, not arbitrary. And in a world where most traders let emotions dictate decisions, Kristjan lets the chart's simplicity guide everything. Clean charts reflect a clean theme. A stock can't move cleanly unless the sector supports it. That's why Kristjan's obsession with chart structure is tied directly to his obsession with theme rotation. One reinforces the other. Kristjan doesn't just trade well, he only trades what deserves to be traded. That's his edge. And that edge compounds not just in better entries, but in deeper intuition. Because once your mind stops wasting energy on interpreting chaos, it starts to see momentum before it even breaks out. That's the magic of the next system Kristjan built, not on the charts, but in his own brain. Section 11, the replay ritual: how to burn patterns into your brain. Most traders study charts. Kristjan replays them, night after night, for years, not passively, not like scrolling through Instagram, but like an athlete rewatches game tape, like a pilot logs flight simulations, like a musician practicing scales until their fingers move before they think. Because trading is a performance art, not an information game, and the only way to master it is to build instinct that precedes thought. Here's the ritual. Kristjan pulls up a historical chart of a monster stock, Tesla, Shopify, First Solar, AI stock, and replays it bar by bar, candle by candle. He watches how volume builds, how flags form, how breakouts unfold and fakeouts resolve. He watches the gaps, the shakeouts, the consolidations. Not to memorize, to feel, to absorb rhythm, flow, pressure. He trains his brain to recognize structure without needing to label it. Over time, that repetition carves a neural groove deeper than any course could offer. Every night for a year, watching 20 to 30 historical setups play out in accelerated time, seeing how the best stocks consolidate after earnings, how leaders behave near key moving averages, how real breakouts differ from manufactured noise. Now imagine stepping into a live trade and realizing you've already seen this story before. That's the edge Kristjan built. Pattern familiarity so deep, it became instinctual recall. This is why he doesn't flinch when a stock dips slightly after entry. He's seen it 1,000 times. Why he doesn't panic on a fast push or hesitate on a breakout that looks too obvious. His mind already knows the likely scenarios. He's not guessing, he's responding. Repetition didn't make him smarter. It made him quieter, less reactive, more decisive. Most traders chase new strategies, new indicators, new setups. Kristjan chased depth over novelty. He didn't need more information. He needed the same information repeated until it became embedded in his nervous system. Kristjan's chart replay ritual is boring. It's repetitive. It's not sexy. And that's why it works. Because trading isn't about stimulation. It's about preparation. And the mind that prepares deeply is the mind that stays still in chaos. Tonight, instead of scrolling for the next big stock, try this. Open a clean historical chart. Replay the candles. Feel the flow. Take notes on how it breathes, then do it again. Not because you need to memorize it, but because you're rewiring how you see. Because once you burn those patterns into your subconscious, you don't need to predict anymore. You just need to remember. And that memory becomes the map that protects you from the one thing that still lurks in the shadows of every great system, your own self-sabotage. Section 12, the mistakes that blow up traders and how he avoids them. You can have the best setup in the world, perfect entry, tight stop, clean theme, and still blow up, not because of the market, but because of you. Most traders skip this, thinking trading is about finding the holy grail of strategy. Kristjan knows better. He's watched more traders fail from psychological leakage than from technical ignorance. And he's built his system not just to win, but to protect himself from the very mistakes that quietly destroy most accounts. The first? Overscaling early, the urge to size up on the first breakout before confirmation. Most traders feel that rush. This is the one. They push in 100%, maybe even more on margin. Then the stock fakes out, reverses, and they're locked in a position too big to breathe. Kristjan never does this. His entries are small on purpose. They let him think. If it confirms, he builds. If it fails, he cuts. No damage, no spiral. The second, revenge trading. Taking a loss and immediately jumping into another trade to make it back. He's seen it, done it, and rejected it completely. His rule? After a loss, he resets. Doesn't chase. Journals what happened, steps away if needed. Because the most dangerous trades happen not in bad markets, but in bad mindsets. The third, all in, all out thinking. This is ego disguised as decisiveness. Most traders either load the boat or sit frozen on the sidelines. Kristjan stays in between, scaling in, scaling out, flowing with the trade instead of dominating it. His system is fluid. His identity is not attached to one position. That flexibility allows him to survive when others blow up. The fourth? Holding losers. It'll come back, they say. It's just oversold. But Kristjan cuts quick. He never holds a stock that breaks structure, no matter how strong the theme or how recent the breakout. If the price disagrees with his thesis, he respects the price. Because he doesn't trade ideas, he trades behavior. The fifth? Not journaling emotional patterns. Most traders only track entries and exits. Kristjan tracks feelings, hesitations, impulses, overconfidence. He knows the edge isn't just in the chart, it's in your reactions. By mapping those reactions, he learns faster, adapts faster, evolves quieter. And finally, chasing setups that don't match your identity. Many traders try to be someone they're not. Scalpers trying to swing traders trying to scalp, pattern followers trying to front-run catalysts. Kristjan never trades out of sync with his own temperament. His system matches his psychology. That's why it works. It doesn't fight who he is. It extends who he is. Which of these mistakes are you still making? Not occasionally, but habitually? Because these aren't accidents. They're patterns. And if you don't build a system to catch them, they will catch up to you. Kristjan's edge isn't just his setups. It's the invisible architecture around those setups. The habits, the protections, the emotional circuit breakers that keep him from becoming his own worst enemy. Because once you eliminate self-sabotage, your system starts to breathe. And that breath leads you towards something most traders never find. A blueprint that scales not just your account, but your life. Section 13, the full system blueprint, from obsession to millions. This is where it all comes together. Not in some complicated funnel of indicators or a 1,000-screen setup. Not in secret watch lists or paid discords. But in a quiet, repeatable process that Kristjan Kullamägi has refined day by day, candle by candle, until it became more than just a strategy. It became a state of mind, a way of operating, a life system built around one central idea: simplicity that scales. It's layered. First, he builds his environment, scanning daily for momentum leaders using tools like TC2000, filtering for stocks with high average daily range, strong relative strength over 3, 6, and 12 months, and clean sector themes. If the macro theme isn't there, he waits. If the chart isn't clean, he skips it. No compromise. Because the edge begins with selection, not entry. Next comes setup. Episodic pivots for catalyst-fueled gaps, flags and triangles for continuation breakouts, parabolic shorts when hype overstretches reality. Each setup tested, replayed, journaled, lived through. There's no guessing, no emotional improv, just patterns that have proven themselves again and again. Then comes entry, small, deliberate, designed to gather information. 25 to 50% of intended size. Wait for structure, confirm behavior, then add again. Not out of greed, but out of earned confidence. His scale in process is mechanical. He never enters hoping, he enters watching, letting the market tell him when it's safe to trust. Risk is never violated. 1% max, always. That's his oxygen. Without it, the system suffocates. With it, the system breathes freely, endures drawdowns, compounds conviction. And position size, tied to liquidity, volatility, theme. Always responsive, never rigid, never sized from emotion. Then comes the discipline of exit, scaling out into strength, locking in at 2R, 3R, resistance levels, letting the final core ride if the trend holds, and cutting without emotion when the chart breaks structure, because the chart always speaks louder than the ego. Surrounding it all, the invisible scaffolding, daily chart replays to burn recognition into instinct, a watch list built from sector rotation, not noise, a journal that tracks how he felt, not just where he clicked, and perhaps most importantly, radical patience. Patience to do nothing when nothing aligns, patience to wait for the chart to prove itself, patience to protect mental capital over chasing action. This is how $5,000 becomes millions. Not from any one trade, but from thousands of micro decisions made in alignment. Alignment with his system, with his risk profile, with his personality. Kristjan doesn't try to become someone else. He became the most efficient version of himself. Is your system aligned with your nature? Or are you still trying to trade someone else's personality? Because until you stop copying and start integrating, you'll stay stuck, spinning, clicking, bleeding, wondering why others make it look so easy. It's not easy, but it is simple. Simple when you remove the noise, when you kill the ego, when you respect the process more than the outcome. This is Kristjan's blueprint, not a holy grail, not a shortcut, a mirror. And if you're willing to look into it, honestly, patiently, persistently, you might just see your own system looking back. Because the edge is not in the chart. The edge is who you become inside the trade. Step into your system. You've just walked through the mind of a trader who turned $5,000 into millions. Not with luck, not with noise, not with some magical alert group, but with a repeatable system rooted in clarity, discipline, and deep emotional awareness. You've seen how Kristjan doesn't trade setups. He trades structure. He doesn't guess themes. He tracks flow. He doesn't scale in recklessly. He builds position like a sniper, not a gambler. He doesn't ride the market like a passenger. He syncs with it like a wave rider who knows exactly when to strike and exactly when to let go. Let's recap what you just unlocked. You learned why momentum isn't just about speed. It's a mirror of your own emotional readiness. You saw how episodic pivots and flag breakouts aren't patterns. They're pressure points of mass psychology. You now know how Kristjan scales in like a tactician, exits like a surgeon, and risks like a monk. You've seen how he avoids the mistakes that silently kill most traders: oversizing, revenge trades, emotional exits. And perhaps most powerfully, you've felt the rhythm of a trader who turned trading into a craft and made silence, simplicity, and structure his edge. Now it's your turn. If you've ever blown up an account but you're still here, still watching, still learning, still trying, then comment below, "I'm rebuilding." Let others see that they're not alone. Let Kristjan's blueprint be a reminder that you don't need more indicators. You need more alignment. What would change if you stopped looking for the perfect strategy and started building the perfect mindset? What if the difference between where you are and where you want to be isn't information but transformation? Subscribe if you want to go deeper into trading psychology, system design, and the mindset that actually works when real money is on the line. This isn't a channel for hype. It's for craftsmen, for builders, for those who understand that lasting success in trading comes not from finding shortcuts, but from becoming someone the market can't break. And remember, you don't rise in trading by forcing wins. You rise by becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to force anything at all. The market doesn't reward effort. It rewards transformation. See you in the next breakdown.